start affords you so much tempo right out of the gate, and being able to overwrite those overloaded mana crystals and just go back to your normal mana cost means you have strong follow-up as well. It's really, really tough for Druid to get ahead, but we'll see if the new tools in Druid of the Reef and the Jerry-Rig Carpenter can help break that balance.
Let's dive straight in. Game number 1 of Series 2. APAC already 1-0 up in series count overall, so they've already gained a point. So now just in terms of the 2 regions you've seen play so far, EU currently on 2 points with their victory in Battlegrounds, and APAC have 1 point to their name with their victory in the first series of Constructed. If APAC wins here, they you know, give everything over to their mercenaries players to decide who's going to try and break the tie. And if EU wins, then the mercenaries would have to win both series to even just catch up or try and catch up at that point. So a lot on the line in this singular series now that Battlegrounds is done with, and Baby Bear starting off pretty well. None of the sort of big impact minions early on, like the Battle Guard or Squirrel, but big enough, right? Just having this that often doesn't get answered turn 1 with as the peasant, and then having a 2-drop to follow up with is often just good enough.
Yeah, it's a pretty good start for both players, actually. I'm a little surprised to see from Possessi Coin Lightning Bolt, I've got to say. It, you know, still flows pretty nicely with the rest of his hand, because he could follow up with Primordial Studies into the 3-mana Serpent Shrine portal. But I was thinking just being able to use that Lightning Bolt in order to curate a more powerful Forbidden Flame, or Perpetual Flame, sorry, would be a little bit more powerful, because there are Divine Shields, there are minions with more than 3 health that can get a little bit pesky.
Yeah, and already here for Possessi. Is that
top deck?
Yeah,
That's
the blue.
so good.
Gets all this mana back as well, isn't overloaded at all. That should proc his quest unless I'm going crazy. Nope, yep, there it is. Makes sense.
Can even end with the Primordial. So powerful. The, what is that, Piper as a 1/6 that buffs your beasts when it attacks. Probably not going to get any value out of that effect, but even then, just a 6 health minion can be used to chew through Divine Shields, any other manner of powerful abilities.
Yeah, and the sort of reasonable number of 1 health minions in the Druid deck, right? Like, there's enough for it to be worthwhile, and there's just not much Baby Bear can do about it. And this is where things get rough, right? Like, does this just have to be a Neutron and a 2/2?
I mean, unless you want to go for a 2/2 plus draw immediately, which I do not like the look of, then yes, I agree. You just play all your stats and hope that that's enough.
Yeah, I think this just has to be Baby Bear hoping that these minions don't get cleaned up, and then there's a chance at, say, a 2-drop next turn with then composting, and then, you know, you're at least okay with potential 4-card draw. That's enough to fight back in the game.
Am I crazy for wanting to go for that charge call? Like, the spell damage being saved to go with the Perpetual Flame on turn 5 sounds pretty strong, and I think that's just a 4-drop right now, which is, you know, it's not amazing compared to what Perpetual Flame can do, but there's some pretty reasonable 4-drops you can hit.
Yeah, and it does. I think in this matchup it doesn't have to be amazing if you're playing it this early, right?
Yeah.
It's an on-curve play. Just get the minion down, hope for something half decent, and you're competitive on board, and I think that should be good enough for Possessi.
The Cheesemonger?
I mean, I don't
it's
see
just
why
hell.
not. Yeah. Like, Taunt is nice on paper, but the whole point of this play from Possessi is he isn't having to be defensive with it, right? He's basically being aggressive with this play. His minions are far bigger than the ones Baby Bear has access to, so...
Oh, Baby Bear has to proc the Cheesemonger here, right? Like, you can't get away with just not playing any spells here.
Yeah, I think just guaranteeing 3 card draws is just too strong, right? Like, is composting ever going to get any better, even though it's slightly worse because of the cheese?
That's not terrible, I suppose. Whoa. Wow. And so it does feel, even though only one of the cards in hand could currently be Arbor up, I'm definitely looking at just going for the clear on this turn with the Perpetual Flame. Those are a bit underwhelming. Wow, okay. Or I guess the double trade is good enough. You can clear without having to go for the flame. But as long as you're in some way clearing up most of the minions, it's fine.
Yeah, I think so as well. And it saves the Perpetual, right? There is a chance that things go a little bit haywire. Druid can just build up a huge board. Arbor up naturally makes minions that are susceptible to Perpetual Flame as well.
Double overload here, I think, puts him on 2 out of 3 for the next quest, which... in that instance, I do think I would rather save the Zapper to go with that Perpetual Flame than potentially prop the quest next turn, get yourself the 3-3 as well, and making sure that it's that little bit harder for them to play around Perpetual Flame.
Yeah, battle card being picked up here as well as Druid of the Reef. Going to be enough. Again, the fact that Possessi just got hold of 2 very sturdy minions here in the 1/6 and the Cheesemonger as a 3/6. Like, it's just a lot of health and honestly enough attack to be threatened.
It's just getting in the way, isn't it? Setting up for more powerful plays next turn. Like 6 mana, you can just play everything, buff everything as well, and be quite happy. That is a interesting top deck. I believe Possessi has played 2 spell schools so far, with Nature, obviously always you play that, and then Arcane off of the Primordial Studies. So he could try and juice it up a little bit first with going for the Fire spell as well in order to draw 3 cards off of that next turn. The problem, however, is that he would actually just be too overloaded, right, if he goes for the Novice, Bump, and then Perpetual Flame.
Yeah. Whoa! Okay.
The shock.
Well, okay. If it's going to happen, if your board's going to get cleaned up, you'd rather your opponent pay you 2 coins to do so than not, right?
True.
World, but again, is Possessi just already too far ahead? Maybe Bear has to not only make a board, but get it to stick and get something done first.
That's such a sick top deck. What a way to spend your mana. I mean, now you can just go Druid of the Reef for Taunt? Or I guess you can go Rush, buff it, and then give it Divine Shield to trade into the 3-3.
Or could you go Taunt and use the Hog Merchant to just kill the 3-1?
Yeah, that's also a
Is
good
that just
idea.
better because you just make a bigger minion, right?
Probably, yeah, and you deny them the spells. You don't want to give them a bunch of 0 mana spells in return. Buff it up, get yourself another minion on board. Coin, Arbor up. Man, the difference that Lone Shark made just cannot be overstated. Such a big difference here, especially with the 2 mana that Possessi has on his turn. He's taking a real beating here.
Yeah, straight after Perpetual Flame as well is not really what you're after, and this is just a hard hero power pass for him. It can make some trades, of course, but it's kind of rough. Definitely needs next turn to be very, very strong indeed.
He is also, it's worth mentioning, getting a little bit punished for the trade order that he went in. I didn't bring it up at the time, but he traded with his Cheesemonger instead of with the Piper into the Teacher's Pet, which did get him a value trade, otherwise the Piper would have died. but it did mean that he was left with a 1 health minion on the Cheesemonger, which is, of course, very vulnerable to both hero powers and the Orc Merchants, as we saw there. And that, of course, has the knock-on effect here of having a 1-attack minion, which can't kill anything after the Arbor Up has come down. So he's left with 1 more minion on board. The decision that he went for in his order did not work in his favor here, even if in some other instances it could have worked out okay.
This just is slipping away, isn't it? Tons of damage being pushed here for Baby Bear, and it means Possessi has to pull something out the bag. There is the Serpent Shrine portal, but what does that even really do? We can kill a 5-2 with it, but what is the follow-up? Okay, that's something.
So there's a few ways you can go about this here. You kind of want to play the multicaster just to set up for drawing perpetual flame, sorry, again, just to be able to clear off the whole board. But then what, are you leaving up the rest of this damage? You can clear off 8 on this turn, which would mean then that you are tanking still 14 damage, 15 with the hero power. Like, you're just 1 away from dying.
Yeah, I'm thinking the Serpent Shrine plus Wolves, that overloads to 6 next turn, and then the multicaster can still get Flame, right? Stop mana for it, turn after.
True, yeah, that's a very good point. Don't want to shoot the big one?
I think I would have shot the 5-2, Derek, in my professional opinion.
This is just the most Possessi play ever. Like, it's just always perfect play, and then just randomly you do this, and then you lose the game because of it. Is he just dead now? Or is it 1-off?
I feel like I can say yes, and no matter whether his portrait explodes this turn or not, I would be correct. Is he just dead now? That's 2, that's 14, 15, yeah, 1-off.
He's 1-off, yeah.
Which, without a taunt, means hero power just kills him next turn.
Oh man, that's such a disappointing end. Like, now, even if he gets the Perpetual Flame, he can clear the board, but he's still just dead. It's just an annoying misplay.
Yeah. Now I really want him to play Multicaster and get Perpetual Flame.
Same. Same.
Like, no, you think about what you did.
Perpetual Flame, obviously.
Else?
Yeah, I mean, it can't come off one maker, but you can get, like, guidance into...
Wait,
I don't know, Perpetual Flame anyway.
Would one maker revolve get him anywhere?
I don't see it.
If he got a taunt off the Piper, maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah, either way. Doesn't look like it's going to be enough to me.
Yeah. Bit of a sad end there for Possessi. I mean, it looked like it was ending either way, whether he made the good attack or not, but either way, it's an unfortunate way for the game to end there, and it does mean that Baby Bear getting the win has done her team the biggest of solids. This is such an important win because, as I was saying, Quest Shaman was looking difficult to counter, and with that out of the way, the anti-aggro capabilities start to look a little bit flimsier. That Warrior might be the best they have, which I do think would be a very good matchup, but just deleting the Shaman from the equation puts EU in a premier position.
It really does, right? And this is where, again, we've seen it a couple of times already, where just because there's an aggro deck and an anti-aggro deck doesn't mean the anti-aggro deck just auto wins, right? Because a lot of these aggressive decks in the meta right now have very explosive turns where they're doing more than the anti-aggro deck can really deal with. Obviously, what was helped a lot there was the Shark coming out for the 2 coins for Baby Bear, which helped just get that Arbor up active and going wide as possible. But again, it's just a tough one, right? It's all... The Perpetual Flame was decent, it helped, but then it was gone, right? You use a card and then it's done. So if the board is rebuilt up again, then you're in trouble. And it's the same what I was talking about in the previous series with the Priest. Like, Priest has loads of great tools, but they don't sit with 30 card hands, right? Like, they can't just keep using whatever they want. They have to draw it, they have to get hold of it and use it at the right time. So it does leave windows of opportunity open for some of these aggro decks. And again, just having a win on that Druid means that Baby Bear's going to be on Druid in game number 2. And this deck is scary. There's a reason this is a bit of a terror on ladder, even with all the, all the rogue and everything else that people maybe shine the spotlight on a little bit more. Aggro Druid's been terrorizing the meta for quite a while now. And with the new mini set, it's only gotten stronger.
That's right. It's a deck that still just perplexes me, honestly. Like, it shouldn't work. This should be a garbage deck that you give to new players because it's easy and it's good enough to get you to Legend. But it's just not. It's just really good. Again, all of these minions that you have to clear every turn make it annoying against control decks. And against aggro decks, you're doing such powerful combos with the Oracle of Elune and, of course, the Razormane Battle God, the real cornerstone, the beating heart of this deck as a in totality. And then, if anything, it's just gotten stronger, as you said, with the new tools. Being able to go with the Jerry Rig Carpenter fills up your hand so much, makes your composting compound in order to draw you more cards afterwards. It really is a terror, as you said, on ladder and in tournament metagames as well now. But unless I'm going to be surprised here with something weird like a Shadow Priest, which I think would be a questionable matchup anyway for the Shadow Priest, I do think, if nothing else, there's the panic button that APAC can just slam here of the Warrior, which should just be in a premier position against this this aggro Druid. Even though the the Control Priest was not able to get the job done, this Warrior is just even more anti-aggro than that Control Priest. All it does is just beat up on these board-based decks.
I think the difficulty will be that if Warrior is the answer now, then does he UQ Shaman, beat the Warrior, which I think it's got a very good chance of doing, and then what's the answer back to the Shaman, right? The answer is to try and win a slightly, an unfavorable, which is not what you want potentially going into games 4 or 5 of the series and of the last series of the day for this team. So yeah, it's going to be a tricky one. I don't know if Team APAC might just have to just throw another aggro deck out and just say we'll just win the sort of semi-mirror going on there to try and just get one step ahead. So we'll have to wait and see, as I'm sure the players are getting close to picking their decks here for game number 2, or at least the players being APAC. This is last hero standing, so Baby Bear will be on this Druid once again for game number 2. And are you surprised at all at the bans, just overall, as a little bit of a recap moment, Derek? Do you think these are going to be the bans we see all weekend, all week, sort of, some week/weekend?
I mean, Rogue and Demon Hunter 100%, Warlock like 90% as well. Like, I think these are all very powerful decks right now that have a good matchup spread overall. It's that 4th deck where I think things got a little bit more questionable, but honestly, again, I think you just want to go for the most all-rounder deck. You want to be going for the ban on that one because, yes, you could ban away Control Warrior or Control Priest to make room for your aggro decks, but I just think that is overall too specific of a strategy. You want to give yourself the most flexibility in your game plan by killing off the Mage or the Shaman, which does make sense to me. Maybe Paladin we could argue about, but considering it hasn't even been queued once yet, I think that says a lot about what players think of Paladin right now.
Yeah, and most importantly, we did get the reveal of what the APAC team are going to be bringing here in this game. It's going to be a Druid mirror, Derek, at least if this is to be believed. So it looks like they are taking the, slightly risky decision, you could argue, of just playing a mirror match as their best option, which again, to me, shows the problem APAC feel they are in right now, in that this is a 10-deck format with 4 bans, which means they have 6 decks to choose from at the end of that. They've lost 1, so out of 5 decks, they choose a mirror match to play. That is not something you often expect to see. And either APAC's comfortable enough to potentially throw this game away and say, well, if this doesn't work, we've got something else. Or more realistically, they feel like the matchups don't really end up panning out their way because EU won game 1. And that means they're going to have to pull something big out the bag. And if that is just a mirror match, you've got to say EU's looking really good here.
That's right. They kind of have to break serve, is often the term used in Last Hero Standing, to win an unfavorable and swing things back in your favor. And I do think that the aggro Druid has a better chance of that than the Control Warrior. Like, even if we call Control Warrior, I don't know, be very generous and call it like 70% against aggro Druid, I think it's probably closer to the middle than that. Then the Warrior against like the Paladin or the Shaman, that's just going to be an almost unwinnable matchup. Like, I just don't see the Warrior ever beating Quest Shaman, if I'm honest. Like, I'd honestly...
Yeah, Quest Shaman can take its time, right?
Exactly.
And still just easily win.
It's just not even close, in my opinion. And so, therefore, if we kind of aggregate things, even though you're in a much better position in this first game, you then are in a much worse position next game. Whereas the aggro druid, even though it's against the Quest Shaman, we just saw that it can win that matchup. And so for Alutemu, it's about trying to break the series wide open and leave himself able to win both this game and the next game, rather than just securing himself one, which is, I think, very reasonable overall. And it does mean that jumping into this first game, or sorry, the second game of the series with the Druid Mirror, it's going to be a close one. Even though Baby Bear on the coin, which is always where you'd like to be in this matchup, Alutemu has a very, very strong response.
Yeah, this is one of the ones where both players are looking good, but right now, Alutemu has the benefit of the Battle Guard and a playable taunt with it, whereas Baby Bear has Battle Guard, but no sort of follow-up there for that little combo, so it's going to be a bit of a problem now, as soon as Battle Guard gets played and sticks, you know you're only going to be falling further behind, right? Like, there's no good way around it, especially not being able to get through this taunt to even get to the Battle Guard anytime soon.
So if we look at what the Jerry Rig can do, like, it allows you to go wider, obviously, with the extra 1/1 and the attack buff, but I just don't really see that getting it, to be honest, especially as you're just going to be behind right from the get-go. It draws you an extra card, which means you're more likely to find a taunt, but just because of the compounding effect of this Battle Guard, even with a Teacher's Pet picked up for next turn, if this can't be killed off, it's just over already for Baby Bear. Alutemu just snowballs the game to a win, it feels like.
Yeah, and looks like the gamble might well be paying off, right? Like, there's nothing there's nothing going wrong here for Alutemu. He gets to buff this board, make clean trades, keep his Battle Guard relatively safe, and that's just not the draw that's needed, right? Baby Bear had the Battle Guard as well in the early game, but just nothing to actually pay off with, so I'm already struggling, Derek, to see a way for EU to win this game.
Yeah, if Baby Bear can survive for a few turns and draw exactly Oracle of Elune and a 5-cost taunt, then there's always the turn 6 catch-up of going Oracle, Battle Guard, and then double up one of your 5-cost taunts, given that it would then cost 1 mana with a double discount from the Battle Guard. Problem is, though, of course, she only has one of those 3 pieces of Exodia in order to be able to swing the game back. And even then, she's probably just going to be facing too much pressure for that to be able to swing things back round. Park Panther is a very powerful tempo tool in order to turn things around, which does incentivize her to go hero power this turn, because then Park Panther plus the 3 damage can take out the Battle Guard. And so it's definitely making the best of a bad situation here, but it is still a bad situation.
Yeah, the only thing in this kind of opening that could like mess with Alutemu would be a lack of card draw, but the fact that this peasant is safe is doing so much work right now, because you could see, right, that you could see the world in which, like, say there's only the Bone Chewer in hand right now, and Alutemu is not drawing an extra card per turn, then that comeback mechanic could well work, right? But I think with the Teacher's Pet and then this peasant is just never going to die this game means that Alutemu's never starved for resources, and then one Arbor up draw and it's all over.
So that's the plus attack, not summon a 2/2 half of Sow the Soil left. I mean, you could like wait till next turn and then go Park Panther plus attack in order to be able to actually chew through the Teacher's Pet, but then what are you doing this turn? Like, Battle Guard plus the Peasant is way too slow, and it throws away one of those powerful combo pieces I was talking about in the form of Battle Guard.
Ooh. So that's a turn you don't like playing, isn't it?
Yes, and Copycat coming off. I guess one of the cards that further bolsters Teacher's Pet as just being a super strong card right now. Like, the average 3-cost beast right now is incredibly powerful. And one of the main reasons why Druid is just such a top contender in this metagame.
Yeah, looking at this now, there are taunts available for Baby Bear, and she's going to just play it out to see how far she can get here, but it's just too much. We can see the Arbor up, and like I said, the real MVP here is just the Peasant being able to stay alive. It's just too much damage, and it looks like that makes game number 2 going to go over to the APAC team, which evens up the series 1-1, and means that they did not again have to answer aggro with anti-aggro. They just queued the Druid Mirror, and it paid off for Alutimu with that incredible opening.
But now it's time for Bunny Hopper to say, hold my cauldron of whatever cookie is cooking up in his Shaman deck, because now it's time for the Quest Shaman to come in and take down this Druid. I know it's gone the other way so far this series, but I do still think it should be a very, very powerful matchup, or a very good matchup for the Quest Shaman. As so far it's just been Druid dominance. On average, though, that should come to a screeching halt now.
Yeah, I think, again, I think because it's Team EU with the Shaman and APAC without, that all the reasons I was saying for APAC to potentially not queue the Shaman are all the reasons why, like, EU should, right? Like, if they queue that, then because they have it available and can queue it for this game, it means that they can just not have to worry about what else APAC's got, apart from just getting sort of cheesed out by an aggro deck, which, as we've seen multiple times already today, can happen. I do think it's Bunny Hopper's time to shine.
Yes, yeah, I think that the Shaman should be in a really good spot. If we want to look at it more positively for APAC, though, we could say that they still have the Druid and the EU doesn't, and Druid, I think, is probably the best of the non-banned decks right now. We can make an argument for Shaman, certainly, but outside of that, it's just, you know, mediocre aggro decks, mediocre mid-range decks in the form of the Hunter and the Paladin primarily. So again, it just comes down to a very, very important matchup here. If Alutemu can get the win, I think that they are just going to be sailing pretty likely through to being the winner in both series. But if the Shaman gets a win, then we're looking at like Paladin being the best counter, which is a close matchup, to be fair. I've seen it go both ways many times, but it's not where you want to be, especially, as I keep saying, with how intimately Bunny Hopper knows the deck. He invented this build of the deck and has turned it into an art form with his fine-tuning of the list.
Yeah, and we are going to see very quickly, I imagine, what's going to be queued in here. Yeah, of course, it's Alutimu's Druid, which we know because this is last hero standing, but I want to see this graphic quickly shuffle away, and then we get to see what Team EU is going to be bringing. Again, points are on the line here, and although this is a relatively long tournament, it is... Oh, Gabby's just going to play Priest. Of course he is. Because it's a relatively long tournament, these players do need to cash these points in, because if you are fourth at the end of the sort of points generation days, you are just done and you're out. And then if you're second or third, you have to play off to be able to play in that final match. So a lot on the line for all of these players here, this one big team from each region. But what do you think of Gabby just going for Priest? You just think, oh, okay, he's confident enough, Priest can get the job done versus Druid, even though it did seem to stutter a little bit in the previous series.
Yeah, I mean, I do think this is a good matchup overall. Obviously, with Gabby losing this game in the previous series, I think that was uncharacteristic of how it's usually going to go. I would hear the argument that it's better against aggro Druid than the Shaman is. Maybe Bunny Hopper, in his infinite wisdom, says, you know, it's actually a little bit closer to a 50-50 now, just because of how much stuff the Druid throws onto the board, and if Shaman can't find Perpetual Flame, they struggle to keep up. More likely, I think it's because they're trying to get some fancy Q order going on here. Maybe saying they actually think there's not really too many counters to the Priest. You know, we can talk about how there's not many counters to the Shaman, but with, again, Rogue, Demon Hunter, and Warlock all out of the way, this Control Priest is in a reasonable spot. I think the best counter available would be that Paladin, against which Priest does have some pretty powerful tools.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see again because the priest and it's often happens with LHS is that the decks that aren't or the classes that aren't super powerful right now often become very one-dimensional in LHS, and you can see that from the priest, right? A lot of it is just trying to retain that value, removal, heal, and just sustain through any kind of aggro or game plan in general. And if you know all these combo decks are going to get banned out, that is possible. So I do wonder just how far this priest can go, or if it is just what a lot of players think about it and just think it's just too weak in general to consistently take games. Because if you're not taking at least one win with a deck in a last hero standing format, then the deck is not good enough and it should stop being queued.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you get like out-queued in the first game, like
oh, sure, without game one, sure.
Yes, yeah. Everything should be a counter queue, especially in this 10-deck format where you have after the ban phase 6 decks ready to go in, which is why, of course, we see these players going for some very specialized lists. The warrior, which we have yet to see, is a very, very powerful anti-aggro deck for APAC. I'm kind of starting to wonder if they're not queuing it against the likes of Aggro Druid and Hunter, should it be in the lineup at all? Because if they're so afraid of how weak it is on the counter queue, maybe it's only good in like the last game of this series, which is of course then a very, very niche usage of the deck. Right. But either way, I mean, we haven't seen the Pirate Warrior on the other side for Europe either, so neither warrior getting the intended effect thus far, it would seem. And in terms of getting things started with this Aggro Druid versus the Control Priest, I'm obviously looking for those key high-value minions for Alutemu out the gate. Peasant, Battle Guard, maybe even Oracle of Elune, although that's a little bit mid-game to be keeping right at the start. And then for Gabby, cards like this. Condemn, fantastic. The Devouring Plague, also very good. And then Scorpid, it's just an annoying minion and very possibly a good spell as well.
Yeah, and has just enough health, right? So many of these minions from Druid early on are 2 attack. So just having that 3 health means it either soaks a hero power or it gets a value trade. So big deal there. We do see the weapon as well there from Gabby that, I'll be honest, even though we saw it last series, I forgot it was there. Just because I'm not used to seeing it in the list. So we'll see how this one pans out already. Alutemu a little bit short on the old turn 1 and 2 plays for now, because I imagine he won't want to play the Battle Guard out on its own. We'll have to see though. But Gabby, as you said, got a ton of answers. Okay, well that changed things. Yep.
Yep.
Never mind.
Off the top. Very happy to throw it down. Curves into a potential Teacher's Pet on turn 3 as well, with the 2-mana discount on the Taunt there. And even if it is killed, you can then just go for second Mule plus Divine Shield. What turned from a very, very slow opening for Alutemu is sped up significantly, and will then, of course, demand answers from Gabby.
It looks like Alutemu is just working out exactly what he wants to do here, because although the Battle Guard into Mule is the most strictly aggressive play, he might not want to do the most aggressive play. He might want to hold on to the Battle Guard, do something a little bit bigger going forward, because there is a chance, of course, that he plays the Battle Guard and Mule out, and if the Battle Guard goes down, then his following turns do seem to be a little bit weaker. What do you make of this? Do you like it, or do you think he's playing way too safe?
I mean, the play he's setting up for, as I see it, is probably Battle Guard, Divine Shield it, and then play the Mule next turn, because it still puts, whether you're using the Battle Guard this turn or next turn, you're still getting a burst of tempo on one of these turns. It's obviously a turn later, so you lose a bit of damage, but it gives you the Divine Shield and makes it much more likely that you can follow up with Teacher's Pet on turn 4, and then Arbor up on turn 5. I actually think it's pretty smart. I hadn't seen this line at all, but just giving yourself the maximum protective power on this Battle Guard is worth a lot. The problem is, of course, that it opens up for counterplay from your opponent, and the Scorpid here is an annoying response for Alutemu.
Here now, I quite like the Apotheosis, right? Seems to do the job. The
Okay.
weapon isn't really going to get much done right now. Apotheosis will heal him back up, kill a minion, and just put some more health on there. Obviously, Gabby probably annoyed that he can't get to this battle guard, and whenever one stays up, you know there's a bad time coming your way. But other than that, I think it's absolutely fine for now.
It's kind of close, isn't it? I mean, it depends how much you want to save the apotheosis, because like trade heal kind of does the same thing, right? Given that it has poison, it's going to be killing everything anyway. I was thinking he might go for trade and then the devouring plague, just hoping to snipe the 2-1 there,
Sure.
and clear off the divine shield as well to potentially give him a clear later on. But he takes it even slower, just going with the weapon here and then trying to hopefully clear up a lot of this board with the devouring plague, I would imagine, next turn.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting, right? Because by doing this play, it means that it's likely that this Scorpid just gets picked off. Because I think putting the Og Merchant into the Scorpid is absolutely fine here from Alutimu. And if that's the case, then when is this Apotheosis coming down? Whereas if he'd played the Apotheosis, I just don't think Alutimu could have possibly ignored it, which means that multiple trades are going to happen, and that just slows down the game even more.
Oh, this is a really tough one, isn't it? I could see the argument for getting the Divine Shield traded off just because Battle Guard's kind of done its job now. You have no more taunts left in hand. But then what are you taunting? Oh, sorry, what are you buffing at that point? Because you still want to be playing around Hysteria as much as possible.
It's kind of interesting as well, because he could have traded off the Divine Shield and just more or less gone all in on Arbor up that turn and just said, right, next turn I've got max amount of minions, and then just go Arbor up phase.
Serena is a welcome addition to the hand, though, just to steal a lot of that health from the Teacher's Pet. Problem is, though, of course, that Gabby is still just without those key removal pieces. If he has Xyrella, you're laughing. Next turn, he just obliterates the board and can pretty much run away with things from there. Even a Condemn would be at least go some way to clearing up this board in combination with the Devouring Plague. But as it currently stands, he's just falling prey to the exact same game that happened last time. His opponent is playing too many minions, and he's getting beaten up.
Yeah, right now this dragon is not playable. There is Sethic in hand. Oh, if this trade happens, this is really nice, because again, it's going to deny an Apotheosis. We knows there.
True.
In hand, of course. And it's such a big deal, right? Because I'm not sure what Gabby can get outside of Xyrella. Is it just Xyrella is the plan right now? Is that the only hope he has?
I mean, that's obviously the big one. I think that Condemn would be good enough here, because you can then go for the Plague plus the Shadowcloth Needle as well for one extra AoE. So I think that gives you very likely just a random 3-cost beast on the other side. And honestly, for Alutemu, even if you knew your opponent had Apotheosis in hand, I think you could still make the argument for just plowing everything to the face. With Sow the Soil as well, you can get a huge amount of attack push next turn, but that is a monstrous top deck now for Gabby. One of the few cards that can keep him in the game. There's one play and one play only on this turn.
Yeah. Okay. Really strong turn there for Gabby. A lot of health recovery as well. Alutimu has to keep up the pressure, because right now he does not have card draw, which means that he has to make this work with the minions and cards he has available to him right now.
So he's got Priestess Marsul attack buff, which would buff 5 minions. It's pretty good. And then save the Panther for next turn in order to get the attack immediately. But there is also merit in just throwing down the Panther right now, so it can just go face for effectively 7 damage with the extra attack buff as well.
Yeah, he's a little bit confused as to what to do himself here. And again, the longer this goes on against Priest, the longer that Alutimu's going to be thinking, well, if he's not played Zyrella yet, he probably will do soon. So he's going to be just conscious of that. Or he's going to choose to just completely ignore that fact and just play the game out as well as he can.
Whoa, here he goes. Maximum attack. Just trying to close the game out next turn. Gabby's going to need a little bit extra. The dragon can keep him alive, you'd imagine, for a turn, right? But not by much.
He does still have the weapon active, which is a relatively big deal.
Good point. No, that's a very good point.
The only problem is he has to do Raise Dead, right?
He does have to do Raise Dead. Oh, it's going to be so close. The Park Panther allows you to deal damage to face. The breakpoints are a little bit awkward, admittedly.
It's probably the worst card in his deck to draw this turn, right? Like, you can't play them both, and I think Panther's still just better.
Yeah, I think because of Elic Mount, even though it's just a one-off in the deck. I mean, I was going to say you have to kill it off because of Elic. The other play you can say is, like I said, because it's a one-off, you just don't have it, and I'm going to lose the game anyway if you have Elic in hand, which is, I think, reasonable.
The trade happening on the 6-0 makes complete sense. Since I think our team would quite like to draw the Prime next turn, honestly. Right on time.
Yeah, that would be a very, very welcome addition. It just needs a little bit extra to close this one out.
Here's Hot Head, and finally the Apotheosis hits the board, and this is going to be where the trouble's really going to begin for Alutimu. Not only a minion that can lifesteal, but also with Taunt and a Haddle. That's insane.
Hello.
So you mentioned earlier, Derek, like, oh, you know, these low-tier aggro decks like Hunter. If you truly believed you'd draw like Alutimu and channel your inner Hunter to just rip 6-0 off the top.
Oh, yeah. Every deck's a good aggro deck when you're Alutimu.
Kind of a strange Hysteria as well. Just going to go for it and see what happens. Try and grab the Priestess first. Or the Oracle.
50-50, but that's still fine. Most of the power cleared up, and then you can just go for Sirena if you wanted to steal most of that.
Devouring Plague this turn?
Yeah,
from this pick, sorry. I'm not 100% sure what's left in the deck, because unfortunately we don't have our live deck tracker available, so we've got to cast old school.
We've gone soft without it.
Yeah. But Thrive, always something to consider, of course, if Gabby's fishing for something specific from the deck. Just going to go for the straightforward pick, though. I like it.
Oh, such a tease of a top deck. Just a Battle Master to go alongside this, and he's all of a sudden in the lead again.
At this point, his options are very straightforward, right? Just plays them both, goes face. Do you think he trades into this Scorpid or not?
That's the million-dollar question, right? You can argue that losing your Greymage, your Greybark?
Greybow.
The name of that card? Greybow. There we go. Greybow is fine because you get the death rattle. Bow, bow, bow. But it's still just a 5/6 that you're losing to poison. Like, there's technically infinite value off the death rattle, but there's very often ways that you can circumvent that. Alutemu in the end saying, this one is just slipping away from me. I need the top deck next turn, which is exactly the one-of Razor main battle card. And while I can respect it, I imagine Gabby can shut that down with Mutinous, but even then, he doesn't think that's worth it, and he's just going for max tempo.
Yeah, and something big has to happen exactly this turn. I mean, it's fine, it's playable.
It's okay, yeah. I don't think you can wait an entire extra turn, right? Even if you knew the next card in your deck was Battle Guard, you're just losing this board. Wow. Temi disagrees, though. He's going all in on this plan of Battle Guard. And there goes the plan.
Yeah, rough one for Alutimu. And that's going to be the concede. And Gabby just about holds on with that Priest. It did not look easy. It did not look straightforward. But he did manage it multiple times there. Alutimu looked like he was going to get away with it and just grab yet another win with the Druid. But Gabby shuts it down, and that means he's going to be on Priest next game. And honestly, at least for me, this means it's likely that we go to another Game 5, because I think this Priest may well be targetable.
Interesting, isn't it? Because again, I think it kind of fits into the same camp as the Shaman, where it's an anti-aggro deck in a format where all the combo decks are god. Like, there are many counters to Control Priest. There's a reason why you don't see this deck on ladder, because it's infested with rogues, demon hunters, mages, and warlocks. But those are the 4 decks that don't exist in this format because of the bans. And so Paladin, I guess, becomes the best counter, right? Unless you want to queue in Shadow Priest or Face Hunter. And I mean, those just have to be disastrous matchups, right? With the both of them relying purely on well, board mostly for the Shadow Priest, which is going to be shut down with all the removal, and then burn damage for the Hunter, which is going to be shut down with all the heal, most likely. I think that becomes an even worse matchup into the Control Priest. And so I do, again, think that this will be a first time for the Paladin, but I have been proven wrong many a time in my prediction of Paladin, as it's a deck that APAC players have, I would imagine, come to believe to be cursed with how poorly it has performed in GM.
I will say some of the lists with the Pirates, I think, need to be separated, right, from that sort of assumption. Because I'm right there with you. I was saying during the Masters Tour a few weeks back, where like Paladin seems to be winning off stream, but every time we see it, it's just getting demolished. It doesn't even look close. Yeah. But the Pirates do add a little bit more life to the deck because of the things you can do with them. Whether you play a more aggressive list with the Bless of Authority, or whether you stick to the Librams and just take the sort of general bonuses from the Parrot, which is like, oh, an extra Libram of Wisdom, maybe an extra card draw with Hand of a Doll, things like that, or even the 8/8s if you plan it well. But the fact that you have a card that always, or not always, but generally achieves something solid and good for your overall game plan, and is a reasonable threat in the early game, and is a reasonable threat in the late game, ticks the boxes for what you want Paladin to do. Because the weakness for that deck is that its early cards are really good early, its late cards are really good late, but if you mess with that timing a little bit, some of them just suck, right? They're like really bad, which is one of the big weaknesses of that deck. So we'll see what they queue into. And again, just a quick reminder of how the format is going on, as I realize it is now 8 AM or just gone, our time at least in the UK, which means people might actually be waking up because it is a reasonable hour to do so. We have already had Asia Pacific versus Europe in Battlegrounds with 3 lobbies earlier today. This is now our second best of 5 in Constructed, and then once this is over, Derek and Lorinda will be taking you through the Mercenaries portion of this, which I don't know how many people are aware, but the teams for Europe and APAC are, for APAC, Surrender and our very own caster Gia versus Hunter Ace and Tice as well. So that is a star-studded Mercenaries lineup if there ever was one. So make sure that after this is over, if you've got time, stick around, because we'll be swiftly going into Mercenaries. I'm looking forward to taking my break and sitting back and watching. It's going to be fun.
It is, yeah. I am particularly excited to see how Casper performs. I've been practicing a little bit with him, which has been, as always, an interesting affair. And I think it will lead to a great show, no matter what. But for Glory, it is going to be the Face Hunter that he's going for. Man, these cues that they're going for are so weird. Like, Face Hunter into anti-aggro Control Priest. I've I've never seen the like, but clearly they just do not believe in the Paladin, which is, you know, I think reasonable, because it is not a very good deck right now. I think it's just that little bit too vulnerable to both aggro and combo. But quite clearly thinks that the Hunter is his best shot at taking down what will most likely have to be both Priest and Quest Shaman, right? Like, this is two bad matchups for the Hunter. I've got to be honest, I do still think the Paladin was the better of the two picks against the likely Qs from their opponent. But Glory disagrees, just going all in on the power of Face Hunter to try and get there. And with a starting hand like this, it doesn't look like it's going to do much. He needs some minions, and he does not get any minions. What a horrible starting hand, both pre and post mulligan.
I will say that I've played Hunter a lot, but obviously not really against Control Priest since the mini set came out. It's not really been a, you know, Control Priest meta on ladder, or at least when I've been playing. And I will say that I am interested to play this matchup because of the Biscuit. I do think that potentially helps a lot by making a much harder to kill minion. Then, like, it's not going to die to Holy Smite, it's not going to be cleaned up that easily, it's not going to die to Condemn and so on. This, of course, is not the hand that Glory's looking for in any real way, shape or form, so this is looking about as grim as it's going to get. But I will say that generally speaking, I do think the Biscuit tech actually helps out the matchup in general.
I just can't get over Gabby's expressions. Like, oh my god, the quick shot as well. His opponent is going to go hero power on 2 and 3, and that is what I was waiting for. That smug grin. Yeah. Honestly, he's just kind of confused. Like, if you had to come together with 6 cards for Hunter, how many of those are not playable on turns 2 or 3? It's very slim. And, I mean, this hand for Gabby on the other side is just the absolute juice. Like, he doesn't have any early tempo plays, but a potential for what? 4 Zyrellas, if that's wanted for Gabby.
This has
over
coin
the course
Zyrella
of this
all
game.
over it, yeah.
It's just tempo Zyrellas.
Yeah.
That's how much he's winning this matchup.
It's just correct though, right? He gets a minion on board, and because he has double raised dead and no other minions in the pool, you said it, right? He has plenty of time to heal up, get these raised deads used up, and just say, okay, the next couple of boards that you may be making with what could be a hand with 2 rhinos in it are just going to get cleaned up.
Does look that way, doesn't it?
Well, he's now trying to work back from 30, and he's like, right, 2 quick shots, a piercing shot.
If you want to live in Cloud Cuckoo Land, you can be like, oh great, my opponent just went Coin Zarella. They're not going to have any clear, and they probably don't have any heal either, otherwise why would they have gone Coin Zarella? If you want to live in the real world, though, you could probably deduce they have heal and raised deads.
I can confirm I'm currently living in Cloud Cuckoo Land with some sleep deprivation issues right now, so I'm right there with Glory if he needs me. Okay. It's a lot of damage. It could work.
Sure. Okay, yeah, let's...
If he sticks 1 minion and does double Biscuit, then that's a lot of damage from hand as well.
Void Shot as well, it's just not bad, is it? For more lifesteal, more removal. But yes, let's... I'm going to take a trip to join you and Glory in Cloud Cuckoo Land, and we can try and construct a winning game here. Glory can go for Wrangler into Vulpetinger and then play 4 3/2s, which is, you know, if they don't have a board clear, a very powerful play, admittedly. The problem is that Raised Dead, which you don't know for certain they have in hand, but you can make a reasonable read, to be honest. Just Raised Dead heal, and then Zyrella would clear up pretty much that entire board. Oi, oi, oi.
Gabby has to think about what he wants to do here, because he can still renew Raised Dead Zyrella if he wants the minion focus, or he could just Void Shard hero power right and leave a 1/1 on the board, so that's his choice on that one. Oh, this works instead of renew, of course, because of the 1 damage from the weapon, so that makes a lot more sense. So yeah, he does respect the minion on board. Bear in mind, if one of these biscuits is tradable, or traded, or shuffled, or whatever, it does give a friendly minion rush, a friendly minion on board rush. So there's a chance he can take down the Zyrella this turn, especially if he goes for that Wolpertinger play you mentioned.
I mean, he's seen the second Zyrella now. Again, the problem is the Shadow Needle. Like, it's pretty likely that they can actually play 2 Shadow spells with all the Discover that they've done already and clear up that way. Alternative game plans are, again, just start pointing everything at the dome. I don't think that gets there, even with double quick shot and an aimed shot as well. Okay, going Rhinos.
A Rhino. It's a little bit scary going into turn 7. There's the shuffle. So that's now got Rush. The Biscuit's going to buff. And see what I mean? Like, the Biscuit creates reasonable sized minions, like actual threats from nothing.
Yeah, it's super strong.
But now I want to see Gabby's confidence here and just Whirlwind Slam the Mutinous. Snipe the Rhino. Easy.
Gobble it up. Yeah, I mean, it's a little annoying, right? Like, you don't want to go for Void Shard necessarily, because that procs the Shadow Cloth Needle, which you would rather save. Honestly, I don't think Mutinous is the most ridiculous
I actually like
play
Mutinous.
I've ever heard. Yeah, I think it's actually not
because
terrible.
He always has, like, X Zyrella, right?
Yeah,
like, pretty much guaranteed. This gets him another Mutinous back. He gains a big 1/1 in stats. From just killing the Wolpertinger. But again, that's actually killing 2 minions if you think about it, right? Because the Wolpertinger is the double minion. It's the 2/1/1.
Yeah.
So still, even though it didn't look impressive, it removes certain aspect of Glory being able to go wider on board.
Double Zyrella as well, after 2 have already been played, is just an international crime. Like, this needs a tribunal for Gabby. This is unbelievable, the amount of heal and board clear he has. Glory is again making the best of what was a disastrous starting hand and a terrible situation. And with double Rhino in hand, he does have a lot of damage here. If we want to keep kindle the spark of this game, it's still somewhat alive here for Glory, just with the raw amount of damage he has from hand.
I think what you would need to do is somehow make Rhino work like Piercing Shot, and that he can curl the Rhino round and hit his own 1/1s with it and push the damage still to Gabby. Like that, I think that's what's needed.
The boomerang
Desperate.
Rhino.
Yeah. Desperate prayer, Zyrella. Goodbye board. And now this is just an aggro approach here. Gabby's taking control of the board. He's on 19. He's got tons of heal available to him still. And, yeah, it's not looking good, is it?
Glory looked like he was praying for a certain card there. I'm entirely sure what that could be that could pull this one
weapon,
back.
right? Didn't you want the weapon to be able to double swing with the Rhino?
Yeah, fair. Well, he can still go Divine Shield and then swing. It puts a pretty high minion on the board. And again, as long as he's clearing off damage, he's not dying especially quickly. So he can get value out of both of these Rhinos.
No.
Oi, oi, oi. So how much clear is available with Zyrella? There's 3 with the renew.
Yeah, it'd be fine, right? Because he can renew... Oh, we can't renew Hero Power Zyrella, who's going to be a mana off. That's fine, isn't it?
I mean, I'm even wondering if you just ignore it and just go for the taunt on Elec. Like, you could trade in the Mutinous and then send a big 4/4 that's buffed up to go face.
Ray's dead again.
Oh my god, more Zyrellas, please, no! I mean, death plus
Tempo Zyrella.
the 4 spell you got? Yeah, I mean, you can just tempo this out, I guess.
Oh, it's taunt. Okay.
It's still pretty good.
He's got like potential 2-turn, right? If he rhinos this turn.
Oh, there's no way, right? There's just no way.
He has 6, 7. Okay. That's 13 just with the 3 spells on the left, right? Oh,
okay, so
wait.
He played the Marsul first, which is fine because that will attack first and deal 1 extra damage.
That's fine. I think he thought he did something wrong, but he didn't.
And then he buffs it up.
Yeah, hero power. Puts him down to 9, and now there's what, 6 and 7, so 13.
Well, he still hasn't actually attacked with the Rhino, right? So he gets to deal another 4 or 5 here.
Oh, even better.
Oh my god, there's no way, is there? There's no way.
Gabby's smiling, but for different reasons now. It's like, wait a minute.
Is it now 1 off lethal?
Oh, it's lethal. Rhino! It's lethal.
The Rhino with Soul Mirror.
Yeah,
oh, that's so sick.
Oh.
What a spot.
What a smooth boy. Gabby takes the victory there. 2 wins on the Priest, and I will say, some great resilience shown by Glory, because that could have been a relatively easy game to concede at many points throughout that one. He kept his cool, played, set up lethal as well as he could, of course, leaving the Rhino up. It's not like he could have realistically played around that too well. I guess in one extent you could say, if we're living in a weird world, that he could have dumped all his spells first and then tried to end the game with Rhino Weapon, right? Because then there's no chance of that Soul Mirror happening. So there's that question you could ask. But I think overall, Glory's general plan, you can see, almost worked. And just looking at how the game started and how the game continued, it probably shouldn't have almost worked, right, in most circumstances. So a good job overall from Glory. But it does mean that Gabby takes that victory, and not only that game win, but the series win for EU. So a really, really big deal there, as I think now that makes APAC on 1 point and EU on 3 overall.
That's right. It was looking like such a good start to the day for APAC, right? They were doing really nicely in the start of those Battlegrounds lobbies, Tyler racking up a whole load of points. But then it all just crumbled at the end with RDU taking the win. And now here in Constructed, of course, we see a good effort for APAC. But in the end, their anti-control capabilities were just not there, right? The fact that they decided to go for this very anti-aggro warrior, the fact that they decided to go for an aggro priest as well, it just meant that the likes of Quest Shaman and Control Priest were a little bit too universally strong. So that's definitely something that APAC will have to factor into their ban phases, perhaps, their pick strategy as well, given that this is last hero standing when they play again in Constructed tomorrow. But for now, for Possessi, Alutemu, and Glory, the Japanese trio, they can at least boast they got 1 point, which is more than the Battleground squad did.
Yes, of course, Battlegrounds is a little bit different in the way it works compared to the other two formats, because in Battlegrounds, the team that wins gets 2 points, the team that doesn't get 0. So that is very punishing, but there are 3 lobbies to go through there, so that's pretty cool to see. We can see how this went out overall, and of course, like going 1-1, I think is fine for now, you know, like that's acceptable. You do still gain a point, but most importantly, it is going to be the same again in Mercenaries, where there'll be 2 best of 5s, 1 point up for grabs for each best of 5, and that's going to continue throughout the day and throughout the tournament overall in the following days. And just again, for anyone joining us, just a reminder that this APAC versus EU is just a single set of matchups out of many. And next up, or later on, should I say, we have Americas versus China. And then tomorrow, we'll have, well, I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but the teams will switch around. So it's, you know, for example, APAC versus Americas, China versus EU, and this all cycles through again. So you can see the total points there. 2 points for Battlegrounds, 1 point for Constructed for EU, and then just the 1 point for Constructed on APAC. So currently on 1 and 3. APAC really could do with pulling something out of the bag here for Mercenaries.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very important match. One that I am excited for and nervous for. I'm already in hot water when Gia found out that I was practicing with Casper and not her. But I'm sure it will be, she won't be mad when she realizes that she probably had a much better go of it, because I am not so good at mercenaries. But
Yeah, was
either
it
way,
actually
we'll see
a
how it
favor
goes.
for you to practice with Hunter Ace to,
Exactly, yeah.
make
I'm
it
giving
worse?
him stupid energy. That's
Yeah,
what I'm giving Gia in response.
But yeah, we do have mercenaries coming up shortly. I believe Derek and Lorinda are going to be taking you through that. And then we're going to start again with the day, more or less, with Battlegrounds coming up after mercenaries, but it will be the Americas versus China. And then that will continue on in the same fashion it has done so far for this matchup. So it will be Battlegrounds into Constructed, and then ending on mercenaries with Americas versus China. And the only thing I'm worried about, Derek, is because I'm not casting mercenaries later. I really want to watch it, and I just hope I can stay awake. That's the big one for me.
I believe in you. If there's anything you can say about my casting, it's that you can technically stay awake through it if you try really hard.
That is a fantastic compliment, and I'll remember to repeat it in the future. For now, though, we are going to go to a quick break while we set up mercenaries. And remember, this is the final matchup for these two sets of teams, so make sure to stay tuned for one of the earlier mercenaries tournaments that's going to happen. I'm very excited to sit back and watch. Lorinda and Derek will bring you mercenaries shortly.